Sabotage. We got to get into this article. We also got Dan Dockich bombing on Kathy Engelbert. So much to get into. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated as always. Let's get right into things. So this is courtesy of thespun.com. Okay, here it says, Caitlin Clark parents made their thoughts on the WNBA very, very clear. And I thought it was very clear without even reading this article. I mean, they don't even want to go to the damn games anymore. That's disgusting that it's gotten that bad.
The 1BA continues to generate controversy. One person conspicuously absent from any positive attention is Caitlin Clark, and the same goes for her mother and father, who have reportedly reached their limit. Their position has become unmistakable, particularly regarding the ongoing situation with the Indiana Fever and head coach Stephanie White. A recent article addresses this directly. It's worth considering. Clark's parents used to attend every single one of her Iowa games without fail. Notice how rarely the broadcast cameras cut to them during Fever games now.
It's gotten that bad to where her parents don't even want to, I can't stomach watching this in person anymore. That's bad. It's bad. It's very, very bad. Here it says, it's a strange time for Caitlin Clark. The #1 overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft has been subject to much controversy and debate. Okay? Very little of which is her own doing. Clark has been subject of...
They have largely stopped showing up, reportedly because of how chaotic things have become. The officiating, the league's overall handling of matters, the Fever organization, the coaching decisions, and what many see as ongoing undermining from within. According to the piece, sports commentator Dan Dockich also unloaded criticism on Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, and there's plenty of ground to cover there as well.
Clark has been subject of racial debates, heated conversations, women's sports theories, and more. In fact, a group of U.S. lawmakers have gotten involved, urging the WNBA to do better. We all know Congress felt the need to step in on this situation. Okay, here's a quote where it says, unfortunately, what we too often witness is not simply aggressive play, but repeated acts of unnecessary physical hostility and violence. That was Congress, okay? And they kind of detailed some of the things, okay?
The report, credited to thespun.com, states that Clark's parents have made their views on the WNBA unmistakably plain. Even without reading the details, the message was already obvious. Their reluctance to attend games in person says enough. Reports indicate they've said watching in person has become difficult to bear. That reflects poorly on the state of things. Very poorly.
Kind of detailed some of the things, okay? Now, here it says, Clark, to her credit, has made it clear that she condemns all of the hatred coming the WNBA's way. She was quoted as saying the harassment, the hate, none of that is okay. The two-time WNBA All-Star said there should never be question of character. Like, I've always stood up here and said that, and that's truly what I believe, and that's how I was raised. So none of that is okay, and I don't want anyone to experience that. Clark's parents certainly backed her. Clark's parents on WNBA stars struggle with online hatred and discourse, though. Clark admitted at
the article frames this as an unusual period for Clark. The #1 pick in the 2024 draft has faced significant scrutiny and controversy, much of it unrelated to anything she has actually done. She has become a focal point in conversations about race, heated public debate, and broader theories about women's sports. Notably, a group of federal lawmakers weighed in, calling on the league to improve its handling of these issues, a sign of how seriously the matter has been taken outside the sport itself. One quoted statement from lawmakers noted that what has often been observed isn't merely physical, competitive play, but repeated instances of needless hostility and aggression, along with additional specifics laid out in their remarks.
Hatred and discourse, though. Clark admitted at the start of her WNBA career that while her parents loved the league, they struggle with all the hatred and discourse surrounding it all. Now, make no mistake about it. The struggle that they're experiencing isn't just like, oh, online people being mean to other players or whatever. No, they also are struggling watching their kid being targeted in these games. The most flagrantly foul player in the league in the last 3 years combined. I mean, just all of this stuff.
For her part, Clark has stated plainly that she rejects all the animosity directed at the league. She was quoted saying that harassment and hatred are never acceptable, and, as a two-time All-Star, added that questioning someone's character should never be part of the conversation, describing it as a value she was raised with and continues to hold. Her parents have reportedly stood behind those sentiments.
I mean, just all of this stuff. This girl's helped everybody get rich, and all she's done is be subject to targeting and all of this other stuff. They have a hard time seeing that too. Okay? She's quoted as saying, they see all this stuff too. You have to remember, we're regular people with feelings. My parents have feelings. It can definitely be hard at times, Clark said in an interview. Her parents have feelings. I don't think people have taken that into account.
Clark acknowledged early in her professional career that although her mother and father support the league, they've had difficulty coping with the amount of negativity surrounding it. This isn't limited to general online negativity directed at players broadly. It includes watching their own daughter absorb targeted treatment on the court, reportedly the most fouled player in the league over the past 3 seasons combined. Despite generating enormous financial upside for those around her, she has largely faced targeting and criticism in return. Her parents reportedly struggle to witness this as well.
People have taken that into account. I don't think the players care, the players that have been targeting her, the players that have thrown hatred and jealousy and all this other stuff her way. She's quoted as saying, honestly, I feel like I have a pretty good skill of blocking everything out. I think being in this position, you better have that skill or else it's going to break you at some point. And that is pretty much what how her parents are feeling. And that's what Caitlin Clark had to say. Like, look, my parents are struggling with this. They don't even come to the games anymore. Because they are so disgusted.
She was quoted noting that her parents see everything too, and that they're ordinary people with real emotions, adding that it can be genuinely difficult for them at times. The emotional toll on her family has reportedly gone largely unacknowledged, with little indication that players involved in targeting her have taken that into consideration. Clark added that she's developed a strong ability to tune out the noise, describing it as a necessary skill in her position. Without it, she suggested, the pressure would eventually become overwhelming. That sentiment reportedly mirrors what her parents have been experiencing, reinforcing why they've stepped back from attending games in person, citing their discomfort with the broader situation.
They don't even come to the games anymore because they are so disgusted with all of this stuff that is going on. Now, we got to get the Dan Dockage bombing on Kathy Engelbert. Kathy Engelbert is ducking the media. She has no answers for the shit job she's done. Pardon my language. She's done an awful job. She doesn't want to answer to it, and she's ducking and hiding.
Proven time and time again. What if the of the WNBA to resign? She is incapable of providing strong leadership. She has not catapulted this league into anything other.
Separately, commentator Dan Dockage directed sharp criticism at Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, accusing her of avoiding media scrutiny and failing to account for her performance in the role. According to Dockage, she has offered no real answers and continues to sidestep accountability. He questioned whether it's time for the commissioner to step down, arguing she has repeatedly shown an inability to provide effective leadership and has instead overseen a stretch defined by public relations setbacks rather than progress. He argued that nearly everything under her watch has turned into a communications disaster for the league, and posed the question of whether her time in the role should come to.
Seen a game be cancelled in a serious pro league because they couldn't get there. For me, this is like madness. Kathy Engelbert wouldn't have happened on a commercial flight. But like, why exactly? I know their charter flight couldn't leave, but there's bound to be plenty of ways that they can get there. Surely somebody, has...
Dockage argued that Engelbert has repeatedly demonstrated an inability to lead effectively, and asked what the league might look like under someone willing to set clear direction, regardless of gender, someone with the authority of a figure like former NBA Commissioner David Stern, capable of managing the chaos. He pointed out that a new controversy seems to surface almost weekly, each one chipping away at fan goodwill. Controversy itself isn't inherently a problem, he noted, but constant, unrelenting controversy creates fatigue among fans, which is exactly what's happening here. Despite having the sport's biggest draw and unprecedented mainstream attention, he said, the league's leadership has been essentially silent, failing to turn that attention into anything beyond a source of ridicule.
Has an ability to get them there. To be fair, if I'm Joe Tsai, I'm probably like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing what, I'm not making sure my players get there, because a couple of years ago, I let my team fly in my plane. I had my own plane. I let my team fly in my plane because I didn't want them to have to fly commercial, and I nearly got told to sell my team.
The commentary agreed with this assessment, stating Engelbert appears unable to get the situation under control and has instead kept a low profile since the collective bargaining agreement was finalized, only to face renewed criticism each time she re-emerges publicly. The suggestion was that she should step aside at this point, having failed to manage the moment. It was further argued that she has given in to the loudest and harshest critics, showing an unwillingness to lead despite holding a leadership role. Whether the subject is officiating, discipline, the treatment of Clark, or any of the league's other ongoing storylines, including matters related to player relationships. The pattern, it was said, has been one public relations failure after another, with no clear resolution in sight, all traced back to a perceived reluctance to take charge. The closing sentiment was blunt: lead, follow, or step aside. And at this point, stepping aside seems to be the recommended course, given what was described as a poor overall performance during this high-profile stretch of the league's history.
By commercial, and I nearly got told to sell my team. I'm not joking when I say that. Like, Joe Tsai nearly had to sell the New York Liberty because he didn't want his team to fly commercial, and he owned a plane and basically was like, you guys can fly in my plane. He nearly was forced to sell his team. But like, surely, because like players still fly commercial to All-Star weekend. They still fly commercial on different stages.
Every so often, the WNBA manages to look completely disorganized as an organization. It's the kind of moment where you picture that meme of a scoreboard being flipped upside down and reset to nothing. Once again, the league finds itself in this spot. This happened only hours ago, not days. There is no game scheduled tonight. The New York Liberty versus Dallas Wings matchup was called off. The reason given: the Liberty simply couldn't reach the venue. They were physically unable to arrive. Liberty players were stuck traveling in the wrong direction for roughly 12 hours. There was no physical way for them to make it there in time. Nothing like this has ever been witnessed in a legitimate professional league before. Watching a scheduled matchup get scrapped over a travel failure feels absurd.
Surely the Dallas Wings could have sorted something out. Surely there's in that same airport, there was not Dallas Wings, the New York Liberty. In that same airport, they can go and, get them on a commercial flight. They had 2 days. Like, they had well over a day. Well over a day. And it's fucked over the Dallas Wings because this has happened before, by the way. And the last time it happened, the team had to forfeit.
None of this would have occurred had the team simply flown on a regular commercial airline. The exact details are murky, but their private charter apparently couldn't get off the ground. Surely there were other options available to get the roster to the arena. Somebody within the organization should have had the means to solve this. Granted, ownership's hesitation makes some sense given history. A few seasons back, the team's owner offered his personal aircraft to the players so they wouldn't have to fly commercial, and that decision nearly forced a sale of the franchise. That's not an exaggeration. The Liberty's owner came close to losing the team entirely. He avoided commercial flights for his roster and instead let them use his private jet, and that choice put the ownership of the club at serious risk. He barely escaped having to give up the franchise.
Because this has happened before, by the way. And the last time it happened, the team had to forfeit a game. The Dallas Wings, I just want to see this. I just want to see the Wings schedule here. Like, does this give them a back-to-back for the first time ever? Because the Dallas Wings have never, they have not played a back-to-back. And they have no back-to-backs on their schedule at all. And the Dallas Wings have 3 and 4 days.
Even so, players regularly fly commercial for events like All-Star Weekend and travel between states that way constantly. The Wings organization surely could have arranged an alternative. The Liberty were sitting at an airport, not in Dallas, where commercial options were presumably available. They could have simply booked seats on a regular flight. There was more than a full day to make this happen. Well over 24 hours of lead time existed. And unfortunately, this situation really disadvantages the Wings specifically.
3 and 4 days. They have 3 games in 4 days after a week off. Wow. That's like some Indiana Fever schedule right there. A week off in 3 and 4 days. That is the most Indiana Fever of Indiana Fever schedules I've ever seen. But like, at this stage, would you not just have them fly? Are you
This isn't the first occurrence of something like this. The previous time it happened, the affected team was forced to concede the matchup entirely. Looking into Dallas's remaining schedule raises another question. Does this now force them into their first ever back-to-back set of games? The Wings have never had a true back-to-back all season, and none were originally on their calendar. Now they're staring down 3 games across 4 days. That's reminiscent of the kind of brutal scheduling Indiana typically deals with. A full week off followed immediately by 3 games in 4 days. That's about as rough as Indiana's schedule gets.
Are you reimbursing me gas 7 hours driving here and home? Like, the amount of fans that won't be able to go to the game that are already in Dallas. Could you not have just put them on a commercial flight? Surely there's a way. Surely there was a way of getting them there. And they were there for 12 hours sitting on the runway. Like, surely there's a way. Just to play the game. And
at some point, wouldn't chartering an alternate plane just make sense? Fans who drove hours to reach the game, only to have it scrapped, deserve better than that. So many supporters already made the trip to Dallas for nothing. Booking commercial seats seems like it should have been the obvious fallback. There had to be a workable solution somewhere. The team reportedly sat on the tarmac for around 12 hours. A solution had to exist. All that mattered was getting the game played. And frankly, the outcome here really does hurt the Wings unfairly. It's a rough break for Dallas specifically. There's no satisfaction in this benefiting Indiana's schedule, even though it does the Liberty now avoid a back-to-back situation of their own, instead facing a 2 days then 3 days gap. The complication is that stretch would have overlapped with Indiana facing them on the other side of that same gap. Meanwhile, Dallas ends up with a 3 and 4 scramble. It's a genuinely unfortunate situation all around.
And it is unfairly again, like, it's basically, it's unfairly, like, fucked over the Wings. I'm kind of happy because it'll help the Fever in their schedule, and, you know, the Liberty then go, not necessarily on a back-to-back, but 2 and 3 days. The problem is, it would have been 2 and 3 days.
Safety obviously comes first, but there still should have been a commercial backup plan available. Teams across most sports fly commercial fairly often. Private travel is actually the exception in a lot of leagues, not the rule. There's first-hand experience of standing in an airport alongside an entire Premier League squad. They weren't even traveling for a match. It was a holiday trip to Dublin. But they walked right through the terminal like anyone else. They moved through security and gates just like regular travelers. There's also knowledge of NBA players seen flying commercial recently, including major stars spotted in Greece last week, and a memory of walking through an LA airport and spotting several Utah Jazz players doing the same thing. If security concerns were the real issue, these organizations clearly have access to protection staff. Teams like these absolutely have security resources available to them. Instead, the fallout now affects everyone connected to this game. Dallas is stuck with a stretch of 4 consecutive road games, and no previously planned back-to-back, now suddenly saddled with one anyway. For comparison, Indiana will play 2 separate back-to-back sets, within a roughly 10-day window. Correction, 2 back-to-backs inside 10 days total for Indiana. They already played one such stretch last week. Meanwhile, Dallas fans might feel like their team getting a single back-to-back is nothing compared to that, but the point stands that it shouldn't have happened from a scheduling mishap in the first place. All of this just makes the league appear disorganized. That's really the core takeaway. The optics here are bad. Canceling a scheduled matchup over a transportation failure reflects poorly on how seriously the league is run. Understandably, the private charter had mechanical or logistical issues preventing takeoff, but there's no reasonable explanation for why the Liberty couldn't have found another way to arrive on time. There simply isn't a valid excuse. Tip-off was scheduled for 9 p.m. Eastern. The cancellation reportedly came roughly 10 hours before that, because the team had already been stranded well before that point. They'd already been delayed for about 10 hours by then, meaning the problem started the night before. Issues were likely apparent within the first hour or two of the delay. There was plenty of time remaining to arrange alternate transportation before the scheduled tip-off. No real justification exists for missing the window. There would have been ample time for warm-ups, stretching, getting to the hotel, and preparing normally.